I've always been a sucker for backroads. Most people stick to the interstates, but I've never liked the monotony of endless billboards, fast food exits, and heavy traffic. Give me a cracked two-lane highway cutting through fields and forests. The kind of road where you can drive for a half an hour without seeing another car. There's a strange freedom in it, like stepping outside of the normal world. That's probably why I found Cold Creek. Or maybe why Cold Creek found me. It was late October, just a couple weeks before Halloween. I'd been on the road 4 hours, heading east out of Ohio toward the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. My plan was simple, a solo trip before winter, a chance to clear my head after a brutal year. Work had been eating me alive, my relationship had crashed and burned, and I was desperate for escape. The GPS had been guiding me along Route 6, a scenic stretch I'd read about online, when I noticed my fuel gauge dipping lower than I liked. I pulled over onto the shoulder, pulled out my phone, and searched for nearby gas stations. The screen flickered once, then loaded a result that made me pause. Cold Creek Gas and Diner to 7 miles ahead. The name rang no bells. I zoomed the map in and out, trying to see what town it belonged to, but strangely enough, nothing else popped up. Just a small pin for the gas station, floating in the middle of what looked like forest. No other businesses, no town borders, no streets except the highway I was already on. Still, it was either that or risk running on fumes, so I followed the GPS's calm voice as it instructed me to take the next right. The road wound deeper into the trees, the pavement narrowing until I wondered if it was even maintained by the county. Leaves drifted across the windshield, orange and red blurring in the weak sunlight. After a few minutes, the forest began to thin, and that's when I saw the sign. Welcome to Cold Creek, Est, 1887. The wood was weather-beaten, the paint nearly flaked away, but the words were still legible. Someone had tied a bundle of dried corn stalks to the post, as though trying to decorate for autumn. I slowed the car, frowning. I'd never heard of Cold Creek, and I consider myself a bit of a map nerd. I know the names of even the tiniest towns scattered along Pennsylvania's forgotten roads. Yet this one was a complete mystery. The first buildings appeared shortly after. A boarded-up gas station with an old analog pump. A narrow white church with a leaning steeple. A general store with a faded Coke mural peeling from its brick wall. It looked like one of those places time had left behind, a town that had peaked in 1950 and had been dying ever since. But then I turned a corner, and to my surprise, there were people. A man in overalls sweeping the sidewalk, a woman in a calico dress carrying a basket from the store. 2 kids kicking a half-flat soccer ball in the street. They all paused as I drove past, their faces following my car with the slow, unified stillness of animals tracking a predator. My chest tightened. There was nothing overtly threatening about them, and yet something felt off. Maybe it was their clothes, which seemed a generation or two out of date, or the way they didn't smile or wave. Just watch me. The GPS chimed again. Arrived. I pulled into the lot of Cold Creek Gas and Diner, which looked as though it hadn't changed since Eisenhower was in office. The pumps were the old mechanical kind, no card readers, no logos. The diner itself was a squat brick building with a flickering neon sign, Eat. I shut off the engine and stepped out. The air was colder than it had been on the main road, as though the town carried its own climate. The smell of wood smoke drifted faintly from somewhere. Inside, the diner buzzed with a low murmur of conversation. A half-dozen locals sat in booths, all of them turning their heads to glance at me before returning to their meals. The waitress behind the counter was maybe 40, her blonde hair tied back, her lipstick a shade too bright. She smiled tightly. Coffee? Pie? She asked, as if that were the only possible order. Just gas, actually, I said. And maybe a cup of coffee to go. Her smile stiffened. Then she nodded. Sure thing. Pump'll work if you let Hank set it. I frowned. Hank. As if on cue, an older man in greasy coveralls shuffled in from the side door. His face was creased and leathery, his eyes pale blue. He gave me a curt nod and gestured toward the pump outside. Something in his stare made me uneasy, but I handed him a 20 and told him to fill it. While he shuffled off, I waited for my coffee. The waitress poured it slowly, almost deliberately, and slid the paper cup toward me. I noticed her hands were trembling just slightly. Passing through, she asked, "Yeah, just heading east. You'll want to be back on Route 6 before dark," she said. Her voice was casual, but her eyes flicked toward the window, toward the woods beyond the town. "Why is that?" I asked. She hesitated. Her lips parted, then closed again. Finally, she shook her head. "Roads are tricky at night, lot of deer." But something about her tone suggested that wasn't what she really meant. I left a tip on the counter, thanked her, and walked out with my coffee. Hank was still pumping gas, the numbers on the dial clicking upward. For a moment, I glanced down the street. That was when I noticed the sign. It stood on the corner, partially hidden by a telephone pole. A simple wooden board with black letters burned into it. "Don't stay past sundown." My stomach tightened. I turned back toward the diner, but the waitress was watching me through the window, her face pale and unreadable. I decided not to linger. As soon as the tank was full, I thanked Hank, climbed back into my car, and started the engine. But when I glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw the strangest thing. Every person in the diner, every single one, was standing at the window, watching me drive away. I should have left it at that. I should have gotten back onto Route 6 and never thought of Cold Creek again. But something about the place stuck in my head. The way they'd looked at me, the sign about sundown, the fact that the town didn't appear on my GPS anymore once I'd left. That night, in my motel room miles away, I tried searching Cold Creek on my phone. Nothing, not even a Wikipedia page. I zoomed in on the map where I thought I'd exited, but there was nothing except forest, no roads, no buildings, not even the gas station pin that had led me there. I told myself maybe it was just an old town with no internet presence. Maybe the gas station was operating under the radar. But then why had the GPS shown it at all, only to erase it later? I didn't sleep well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the waitress's trembling hands, the stark black letters of that warning sign. The next morning, instead of continuing east, I did something reckless. I decided to go back. Finding the turnoff again was harder than I expected. I drove nearly 20 miles back and forth along Route 6 before I spotted a narrow road half hidden by overgrown trees. No sign, no marker, just an asphalt scar leading into the woods. As soon as I turned onto it, my stomach clenched. It was the same road. I recognized the curbs, the sagging guardrails, but it felt different now, heavier. And then, just like before, the forest thinned, and the "Welcome to Cold Creek" sign appeared. But this time, the letters were gone. The wood was blank, weathered smooth, as if nothing had ever been painted there. A chill spread through me. The town looked the same at first glance. The boarded-up gas station, the leaning church, the diner with its neon sign buzzing faintly. But there were fewer people. The man in overalls was gone. The kids weren't playing in the street. I parked near the diner again, though my hands shook as I turned off the ignition. For a moment, I just sat there, staring through the windshield, trying to summon the nerve to go inside. That's when I noticed Hank. He was standing by the pump, staring directly at me. Not moving, not blinking. My throat went dry. Slowly, I pushed the door open and stepped out. "Morning," I said weakly. He didn't reply, just kept staring. I forced myself to walk into the diner. The bell jingled as I entered, but the room was silent, empty. No waitress, no locals, just the sound of the neon buzzing outside. I turned in a slow circle, my heart hammering. Everything looked the same as yesterday: the counter, the coffee machine, the booths, but There was no trace of life. Then I saw the sign. It was propped on the counter, where the waitress had poured my coffee. Same black letters burned into wood, "Don't stay past sundown." My skin crawled. That was when I heard it, a low creaking noise, coming from above. The sound of footsteps moving slowly across the ceiling. The creaking above me was steady, deliberate. Not the random groans of an old building, but the distinct sound of someone pacing back and forth. I froze, my pulse thundering in my ears. The ceiling tiles rattled faintly, dust drifting down. Whoever was up there was heavy, dragging their feet slowly, as though they wanted me to know they were there. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to get back in the car and floor it until Cold Creek was nothing but a memory. But my curiosity, my stupid, fatal curiosity, kept me rooted. I whispered, "Hello." The footsteps stopped. The silence was worse than the sound. It pressed against me, thick and unnatural, until I felt like even my own breathing was too loud. Then, with a sudden crack, one of the ceiling tiles shifted. A sliver of darkness appeared, and for the briefest moment, I saw an eye staring down at me. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a chair. The eye blinked once, then vanished as the tiles slid back into place. That was enough. I bolted out the diner door, the bell jangling behind me. Outside, Hank was gone. The pump stood empty, the hose swinging gently as though someone had just released it. The street, too, was deserted. Not a single soul in sight. But the strangest part was the light. The sky was still pale blue when I'd arrived, the weak glow of late morning. Now it looked like dusk. The sun hung low, orange bleeding across the horizon, shadows stretching long and deep. I checked my watch. It was only 11:17 a.m. My throat tightened. Sundown was coming. Hours too early. I sprinted to my car, yanked open the door, and jammed the keys into the ignition. The engine roared to life, but before I could slam it into drive, something caught my eye. In the diner window, every booth was suddenly filled. Dozens of figures sat motionless, their faces turned toward me. Their skin looked grey, sagging, their eyes black and hollow. And in the very center, in the booth where I'd sat the day before, was the waitress. Her hands were folded neatly, her trembling on. She was smiling now, a wide, toothy grin that didn't reach her eyes. I tore my gaze away and floored the gas. Tires screeched as I shot down the road, past the boarded gas station, past the leaning church, past houses that hadn't been there a minute earlier, but now lined the street with dark, gaping windows. The sky deepened from orange to red, shadows swallowing the town in unnatural speed. I reached the welcome sign and nearly sobbed with relief. If I could just get back to Route 6. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, my stomach dropped. The town didn't shrink behind me. It stretched. Street after street unfolded endlessly, the diner reappearing on every corner. The same crooked church steeple looming no matter how far I drove. The sign flashed by again, the same cracked wood, the same message burned into it. "Don't stay past sundown." I realized with dawning horror that I wasn't leaving Cold Creek. I was circling inside it. I don't know how long I drove. My sense of time slipped, the light outside fading faster and faster. By the time I pulled over, my gas gauge was nearly empty again. My hands trembled so badly I could barely grip the wheel. The streets were utterly silent, not even crickets, not even wind. Just the low hum of my cooling engine. And then, from the corner of my eye, I saw them. Figures, lining the sidewalks, dozens of them. The same locals I'd seen before, only their skin was ashen now, their mouths slack, their eyes reflecting no light. They stood in absolute stillness, all facing me. I forced myself not to look directly, but I could feel them watching. My phone buzzed suddenly, making me jump so hard I nearly screamed. I grabbed it with shaking hands. No signal, no notifications. Just one new message on the screen. From an unknown number. "Run." That was all it said. I didn't think. I slammed the car into gear and tore off again, weaving through the streets at random. I didn't care where I ended up, as long as it wasn't surrounded by those things. Eventually, I spotted something new. A narrow bridge stretching over what looked like a black, sluggish creek. Its water barely moved, reflecting the blood-red sky above. On the other side, the road seemed to curve upward, back into trees. Hope flared in my chest. I aimed for it, tires spitting gravel. But as I reached the middle of the bridge, the car jolted violently, nearly pitching me into the steering wheel. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died. I slammed the key again and again, but the engine only whined uselessly. The fuel gauge was full. Hank had filled it yesterday. There was no reason it should fail, and yet it had. Right here, in the center of the bridge, I looked up. On the far side of the creek, a figure stood in the road, tall, thin, its limbs too long, its head tilted unnaturally. I couldn't make out a face, only a dark shape against the dim light. Behind me, I heard the sound of footsteps, many of them. A slow, synchronized march drawing closer from the town. I was trapped, panic surged. I grabbed the door handle, ready to bolt on foot, when my phone buzzed again. Another message from the same number. Don't leave the car. I froze, staring at the glowing screen. The footsteps behind me were closer now. I could see them in the rearview mirror, rows of grey figures moving in unison down the street, converging on the bridge. The tall shape ahead hadn't moved, but I felt its gaze piercing through the windshield. I clutched the steering wheel, knuckles white, whispering frantic prayers. And then the world went black. When I opened my eyes, sunlight streamed through the windshield. Bright, ordinary daylight. Birds chirped in the trees. My car engine was humming softly, as though it had never failed. I sat there shaking, sweat plastering my shirt to my skin. The bridge was gone. The creek was gone. I was parked on the shoulder of Route 6, my gas gauge just under full, for a long time. I couldn't move. My body felt detached, as if I'd been gone 4 hours, maybe days. Finally, I forced myself to drive. I didn't stop until I hit Scranton, where I found a crowded gas station and collapsed onto the pavement, sobbing like a child. It's been months now. I've tried every way to rationalize what happened. Stress, hallucination, carbon monoxide poisoning, you name it. But none of it explains the bruises on my arms, shaped like long, skeletal fingers. None of it explains why my phone still has those messages saved, though the number is just blank digits. Oh, 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 oh. And none of it explains what happened last week. I was driving near my hometown, nowhere near Pennsylvania, when my GPS suddenly glitched. The map flickered, then loaded a pin, Cold Creek Gas, and diner to 7 miles ahead. The road it directed me onto wasn't there, just an empty stretch of farmland. But the pin stayed on the screen, pulsing like a heartbeat. And that night, when I parked in my driveway, I could swear I smelled wood smoke. If you ever find yourself on a back road in Pennsylvania or anywhere in America, really, and your GPS shows a gas station you've never heard of, in a town that isn't on the map, listen to me. Don't go there, don't take the turn, because if you do, you might not come back. Or worse, the town might come back with you.